topic, super fun day, amazing venue. Thank you for joining us. So I think we're going to start with some intros. I'll kick it off. Heather Hildebrand. I've been in Accenture for 8 years. I've been in Austin since 2000, so seen a lot. And grew up in marketing, various marketing roles at Accenture, and now run as mentioned, defense, auto, and industrial business for Accenture Song, which is like the marketing, commerce, sales, and service side of Accenture.
I'm Kirk Goldsberry, Executive Director of our Business of Sports Institute in the Cohen School of Business here at the University of Texas. And thrilled to be here, but Accenture helped us get that institute off the ground, so even more thrilled to be up here with Adan Hernandez.
Good morning, Adan Hernandez. I will say Kirk's a little bit humble. If you follow him or you know him, he's kind of the guru behind the analytics for the San Antonio Spurs and the Olympics for the basketball team, a couple of books out, a couple of things. So I've been with Accenture now for 13 years. It's a lifetime in consulting, it really is. I'm a product of the University of Texas. And my son went to school here for engineering, and now he's getting the master's program here in AI. Really proud of what the school's able to do to further education and further your career. Then put me in a place sitting here in front of you saying, let's talk about some cool things. In my day-to-day, I do a couple things. I lead like workforce and people analytics, and I also lead the state of Texas for sports, and what we're doing in sports. Really happy to be in front of you, and let's go.
Okay, let's start out by setting some context. There's a lot going on with sports and analytics and just sports in general. There's a lot, I hear a lot about sports and culture, a lot of brands getting involved in sports. Can you both just talk about how can you help the audience kind of get a better view of like what's happening broadly within sports and culture today?
I mean, sports is the town hall of Western civilization. Look behind you, you'll see one of the larger venues of any kind in the world. And what is it for? It's used 8 times a year. And yeah, they can't sell that many tickets to Carnegie Hall. Sports are everything. It's one of the last things that we all watch together as a group and talk about around the proverbial water cooler on Mondays or Tuesdays or Wednesdays. I think in the streaming era where everybody watches whatever they want, whenever they want, it's the last thing like that. And I think brands have recognized that. It is the great unifier for a lot of us. And I think brands are increasingly aware of the unique power of sports. And the other thing I'd say is the rocket ship is still going up. Like if you graph the popularity of sports in Western culture since 1700, the spark line is still ascendant and pretty dramatically so. And I think brands are just trying to grab onto the coattails of this incredible phenomenon of business opportunity that is sports.
Yeah, to build off of that too, I mean, loyalty in sports is huge. I mean, my dad didn't go to UT, but his son did. So you're damn right that UT is the best football program in the U.S. according to him, right? And then you think about sporting mentality. You have heroes. You have people to aspire to. You have this emotional kind of connection to sports that can be live. And a whole group of people can jump in and feel that emotional high, the roller coaster. So I think there's a brand there with the loyalty like Gatorade would represent that. It's this unique thing that we still have. I mean, Kirk, it's live. You don't watch it at 8 o'clock at night and somebody else watches it at 2 o'clock. You're there, you're streaming. It's a really unique thing that, is still going on.
Yeah, I think especially where we are in time, right? People want to gather, and there's an opportunity to gather physically and digitally, right? Catch up with each other. We have a report called Accenture Life Trends. It talks about the connections between people, business, and the influences around us. And one of those trends, number 5 this year, is called social rewilding, that people, which is nostalgia that we have, and there is a desire to not necessarily shut the phone off, but kind of create some distance between you and digital, and at least have enough counterbalance and enough balance between digital and physical. And I think sports also really helps enable that, where you can be on your phones in a really natural way, and you can sport and social with your friends, but also have those real life experiences that we're all seeking even more now, given where we've been in the past couple of years. So help me understand what the sports leagues are doing today, how they're trying to capitalize on this, and then using something like modern digital technology to drive engagement, drive how entertaining the games are overall as a business, and help the audience understand that.
Yeah, well, I think the number one thing they're trying to do, if you look at the most valuable properties in sports, it's the leagues selling the rights to show their games to network partners or streaming partners that know, whether it's Amazon or CBS or ESPN and Disney, that this is the best product for us to sell advertisements for against. So the number one most valuable properties in sports are those media rights holdings that also keep going up in value for a lot of the reasons we've already talked about. Beyond that, I think there is an emerging sort of realization that pro sports teams are not pro sports teams, they're actually media companies themselves, and they're trying to wrap their minds around that and operate as such, whether it's professionalizing their social media, bringing their own media rights in-house, as the Yankees have done with the Yes Network, for instance, but really putting a fence around these incredibly valuable tribes of human beings that are very passionate, as Adan said, about these brands, and trying to grow that base, and trying to understand it, and trying to serve it, but also trying to capitalize from it. So I think sports and some of these brands are so powerful in the 2020s that the recognition that they're not just about the game on the field, that they have this identity and this power is a huge marketing opportunity that the brands and the leagues are just starting to leverage, but they need help, and that's where I think a lot of people in this room can help them.
You're going to have to forgive me for this next 2 minutes. A year and a half before Texas A&M went into the SEC, we partnered with them to segment the 12th Amendment in terms of being able to understand who their alumni were, what they wanted to be a part of, and what could drive them for further engagement across sports, across universities, everywhere. Now, if you follow that school channel, you know, they went into the SEC, Johnny Hernandez, suddenly, like, the amount of the donations they got was huge. We like to attribute that to the work that we did, to segment all of that. But we learned so many things, and that's where we kind of jumped in saying, wow, utilizing data, being able to segment the audiences, the tribes, and everything you can do, you can understand and make a decision. So prior to that, I think that, you know, a strategy was created for a sports program, and the data helped us to analyze if the strategy worked. It's the opposite now. Strategy is created based on the data, right? And that's whether you're looking to segment the audience, or you're looking for some sort of an ROI on any of the things that you're putting forward in terms of the marketing or sports media.
It's a really good point. So I was curious, there's a lot of business around sports analytics. Do you mind just shedding some light a little bit about how the size and scope of that business around business analytics for sports specific, or analytics for sports specifically?
Let me open up with the umbrella that I'll give to you. So Accenture, large consulting company, technology operations, there's a whole lot of things there. We've been in the sports world for a while, whether it was F1, whether it was soccer, whether it was cricket, and then you get into football, and you get into the NBA. For the NBA, the Golden State of Warriors, before they became the championship team with the multiple champions, they were trying to find out, how can we get the fans engaged? How can we keep them there? They partnered with Accenture to create a multitude of programs that included VR programs, included an Innovate program where we, in real time, would crowdsource what fans wanted to see. And then they would see the changes over the coming weeks and everything else. We saw that, and we said, man, there's a real opportunity. And, a lot of us who live here in Austin, we understand the power of the University of Texas and what it means for the community of the state. And so we came to the Home School of Business and said, man, imagine if we could take this and, from an educational perspective, create a minor, create a community, create a pathway to get into the business, but also create unique research projects, which I'm going to ask you to talk about in a second. So you can see it from a commercial perspective, you can see it from a pro sports perspective. Where it's growing tremendously is the research perspective, partnering with an institution like the University of Texas, where the future, like Kirk said, is up.
Yeah, so thank you, Adan. And, a strategy without analytics, I think, is not a strategy in our modern day. And so one of the things that we've been able to do with Accenture's help is do an ensemble of research projects here at the Goldsberry School of Business in conjunction with our incredible leadership, the athletic department, with Chris Conti, Chris Blonsky, the basketball coaches, and I brought some stuff from the Spurs to UT. And as you guys all know, college sports is changing very rapidly. And one of the major changes is there's free agency for all intents and purposes. Quinn Ewers could decide to switch schools next year. It's going to go to the NFL. But we got Isaiah Bond from the University of Alabama, and thankfully that happened for us. But this is the reality. And fortunately for the University of Texas, this is not a new problem. But it was a new problem for the University of Texas and for college programs like it. So we brought pro personnel data analytics strategies from the Spurs and from Team USA basketball into the college athletics department. And with Accenture's help, we built a bunch of tools that they've used for basketball on men's and women's side and for football to identify talent in the portal so that they can build the rosters that are currently doing pretty well. And shout out to athletics, they won 3 of the last 4 directors' cups. They don't need a lot of help. But one of the reasons they have that is they've always been looking for edges. They've always been looking ahead. And one of the ways I think we've achieved a competitive advantage is by leveraging the academic power and the analytical power of business school and computer science, which are both incredible programs here, blending that with sports and sports expertise to generate analytics that are actually useful for the administration of the athletic department to almost act like a front office as college sports become pro sports, like it or not. They have to have the resources to match. And with Accenture support, and with our incredible undergraduates, we've been able to build some things that we're very proud of and continue to expand that program here at McCombs. And the last thing I'd say is, as a professor, there are so many students who don't think machine learning is that interesting until you say, who's going to be the best player in the WNBA draft, or who's going to be the best player in the NFL. And now all of a sudden, if we can give these young people an application of sports to their curriculum, all of a sudden they love machine learning. And I think that's a huge part, as we talked about at the beginning, of sports being so infectious and so popular. It really helps me as an educator connect with a certain group of people, especially on this campus, who are obsessed about sports as I am.
Do you think, how does sports analytics change the sport itself?
Oh, it's broken them. It's fucked them all up, honestly. It's destroyed baseball, right? So if we broke baseball, they had to correct it. But I will say, so Moneyball came out in 2003, 21 years ago. I teach that book every semester. And this is the first year that nobody in my class had been born when Moneyball was published. So that one hurt a little bit.
You mean the movie?
No, I mean, it was a book before you were born. But Moneyball, so this is the thing I tell you. So 2003 Moneyball comes out, and it informs how front offices reason about sports, and they bring financial thinking in. But it really frames the endeavor as like, here's how to beat the other team. Analytics is how one team can beat more recently, Major League Baseball, I think it applied at the league level to improve the product. So they were facing sort of an aesthetic crisis, thanks to nerds like me. We broke the sport, and Theo Epstein at Major League Baseball was like, what if we made the bases bigger? What if we had a pitch clock? What if we outlawed the shift? And so that's another very different use of analytics that was aimed at beautifying the product or restoring some of the things that people loved about the product. And it was very effective. If you look at the World Series ratings this year, it didn't hurt that it was Dodgers-Yankees. But they used analytics not to beat another team, but to enhance the product on the field. And I think that's very exciting. I think basketball and football and hockey would all look at that and take something from it. And then obviously the business side that Adan has talked about. How do we optimize our experiences for our fans? How do we optimize our relationships with our diehard fans, our season ticket holders? I think the Clippers are doing some really remarkable stuff in their new arena with analytics, specifically on the business side in the arena with their fans. Again, I'll close with the same thing I said a second ago. A strategy without analytics is not a strategy. So where there is strategy, you need data and analytics.
How big is this whole thing in general for us, the way that we see it as a company? Honestly, a part of the market is going up and up. And recently we named the technology consulting partner in the market. There's a reason for it. Because we see the front office and the back office. There's so much opportunity to use the data in a different way that's just not on-field performance, but it is about the entire ecosystem. Right into the football game, what you do at the football game, what you do on a Wednesday to prepare for the football game. It's everything, right? There's a lot of things that brands can learn. Is that how do I segment and get the people that I want to target to get the goal that I actually want? And that's what you're seeing in sports now. You're seeing, the segmentation of different groups for a specific purpose or a goal. But it's also in a venue that brings us together. It's really neat, and I think that we get to live the dream like every day.
No, I think that's great. I know I want to be respectful of time. I know that we've got to walk out soon. I think as marketers, we're always looking for growth, right? How are we driving the growth? And how can we grow our audiences and be more relevant to those audiences, drive more engagement? It's really interesting to see how there's such a huge business using data and analytics to make the sport more entertaining, which creates a flywheel effect, right, with driving more audiences, increasing those audiences, increasing engagement, using more data, getting more excited, increasing engagement, and keeps going. Just given time, do you have any other adds to what Adan said around recommendations to marketers who are looking at how do I engage with sports audiences, to grow my own audiences, to grow engagement, from looking at sports as a way to tap into new audiences, as well as just what the industry has learned about leveraging analytics to engage their own audiences?
I would look at the box-to-box production example of Drive to Survive earlier this decade, and everybody's tried to repeat that success. But it was probably the biggest sports marketing triumph of the last 10 years, is taking F1, sort of reformulating the storytelling around the sport itself and making Americans fall in love with a product that they really didn't think twice about. I don't know if we'll ever see anything like that again, but like stripping that down to its parts, what was that? That was storytelling about sports that turned into entertainment that made everybody happy, from the brands that advertise on those cars to the league itself, and obviously the millions of fans and subscribers to Netflix that kept clicking on that show over and over again. So stuff like that. And again, I go back to sports brands aren't just sports teams, they're media companies, and that's a perfect example. And what I'd say is, like, Box to Box got a lot of money for that. Netflix got a lot of money for that. I think the next iteration of that is the teams taking ownership of that thing too. And the last thing I'll say is, here on campus, we have a Longhorn network, and they're trying to figure companies need help.
I'm going to get the details wrong, so I'm not going to say the details. I'm just going to give you the general. There's a story that I love. The Philadelphia Eagles were going to the Super Bowl, and they were going to win that Super Bowl. But on the way to the Super Bowl, their beer partner was Miller Lite for years. And in the course of that year, Anheuser-Busch came up with a commercial that was about the Dilly Dilly. It was a spin-off of the Game of Thrones, things that were happening, and all these other things, right? But what was so cool and so unique, as they marched towards the Super Bowl, I think it was the mayor or somebody there saying, hey, you know, if we win the Super Bowl, we're all going to have a party. And Bud Light said, we'll buy everybody a beer. Well, that commercial that was on the Dilly, it created so much of a movement. The Eagles created a play called the Philly Philly. And when they went up to score the go-ahead touchdown, the play call was Philly Philly. And they won that play. And so now, Budweiser was thinking, holy hell, 2 million people live in the city. How am I going to be able to buy a beer for everybody? Well, they didn't have to. It turns out they actually bought somewhere around 45,000 beers. But they weren't the sponsor for the Eagles. It was Miller Lite. But man, that transcended into a movement after that Super Bowl for Bud Light around the surrounding area for months and months and months. And they talk about it, how they scored with the marketing of that thing. And it was really unique. They were able to latch onto a movement. Sports can be a movement. When we win the SEC title and the national championship here, it's going to be a movement. But that's the thing, right? You have to use the data to create a strategy so that you're ready for the movement.
That's awesome. Hardest that moment to serve those unmet needs. It's interesting on the F1, you know, we had tickets to go to, since it was built, the track was built, and there was a couple of years where just the engagement was really, really low, and then the show came out, and it's like the world just descends upon Austin every October, and it's amazing to see that perspective. So I think that's a great point. It's a great example. Well, thank you for your time. I know you've got to go. Thank you, Adan. Thank you, Kirk. Thank you, all of you.